Here we'll cover the most basic paddle stroke, the forward stroke or the A stroke. But first we need to dive a little bit deeper into the paddle, how to adjust it, and how to orient it. So most paddles that you'll likely have are adjustable paddles, and you'll want to adjust it to your height. So there'll be some sort of a mechanism to adjust it. This one has a lever on it that you can pop up, and that allows you to adjust the height. To find your standing height, we bring the hands or the arms straight up into the air, let your hand cock over, and then bring the top of the handle here right to the crease of the wrist. So for me, that's about right there. And then you bring the lever down. You want to check in with the handle and the blade that they're in the same plane as each other. So my handle's here like this, and the same, which is in the same plane as my blade, and that's how I want to have it. Otherwise, the comfort of your hand, then your blade will be offset, and you'd have your paddle all weird. On this paddle, we have a white line with a dot, so I line the white line up in the dot. That's how we know on these that we're go to a visual indicator to know that we have it oriented correctly. We see over 90% of the paddlers with their paddle backwards, so let's talk about how you know how to orient your paddle. When you look at the paddle from the side, you notice from the shaft to the blade, there's a curve to it. The blade doesn't come straight out, it goes down this direction. On the inside of that curve, there's a little bit of or on the inside of the angle, there's a little bit of a curve there, kind of like the inside of a spoon. That's called the power face of the blade, and that's what's designed to scoop the water scoop the water while you're taking paddle strokes. So if I'm standing on my board or facing the front of my board, there's two different ways to identify the orientation of your paddle, and it's whatever works for you, but they point to the same direction, but it's two different methods. So one is that I want to have that angle pointed away from my body. The other is that I want the inside of the scoop pointed towards my body. So whatever way in your head this works for, go with that. So if I turn it around this way, now I've got the scoop facing away from me and the angle pointed towards my body. When you are thinking of it, that scoop scoops the water, and that's what moves you through the water. The power face, it does the power of your stroke. So look at your paddle, figure out where that angle is, find the inside scoop. You can put a sticker on the side that you want facing you if that's helpful. On these paddles, the logo is a little bit different on the power face than it is on the back, so that's one way of identifying it. Once you have your paddle adjusted and you know what orientation you want it in, then we can start to talk about the actual forward stroke, the basic stroke that moves your paddleboard from point A to point B in a generally straight line. So here, you want to find your hand placement. Whichever side you're paddling on, your upper hand is the opposite from the side that your paddle's on. So my paddle's on the left side of my body, my right hand is going to be my upper hand. And in terms of distance between your hands, you want to find your hands a little wider than shoulder width distance apart, or about shoulder width distance apart. I like to go with what feels good in your body for the hand placement. And here I'm going to choke up on the paddle because I'm out of the water. I don't have a surface underneath me. But if you're standing, your top hand goes on the top, your lower hand gets placed down the shaft. If you're on your knees, your hands are somewhere in the middle. Or if I'm sitting all the way down on my board, then my lower hand is just above the blade and my hands are placed more like this. So from your forward stroke, whether you're sitting, kneeling, or standing, you want to reach from your waist, reaching out as long as you can with straight arms. Here we dip the entire blade into the water. So this is that entire blue part. While keeping the arms straight, rotating the body to bring the blade back to your feet or your knees if you're on your knees. This is where we bring the blade out of the water and we go for our next stroke. So we've talked a little bit about feathering. When we bring the blade out, that's where we can engage feathering, turning the top thumb towards the front of the board. This moves the power face away from you, bringing the blade back. So in real time, the forward stroke looks like this. We want to stop at the feet or the knees, because if we keep going past that, that actually creates some drag in the water. Keeping the arms straight allows you to rotate the body and move the work into your larger muscle groups. If you're bending your arms, then you're using your arms and shoulders, which are smaller muscle groups, and they tend to fatigue a bit easier. Let's take a look at this stroke out on the water. When you're ready to find your forward stroke on the water, I'm going to demonstrate here from standing. If you're kneeling or sitting, the technique is the exact same. The only thing that changes is your hand placement moves down the paddle. So finding it here with my feet centered over the carry handle, nice bend in my knees, reaching from the waist, I'm going to dip my blade into the water, bringing it down along the rail of the board, bringing it out at my feet. Finding my paddle strokes, feathering the blade there in the middle. So as a reminder here, you want to find straightness in your arms, or at least a very soft bend. You don't want to be using your arm power and your shoulder power to move you through the water. Reaching as long as you can, bringing the blade out at your feet, feathering the blade, turning that top thumb towards the front to bring the blade back to the front, and then taking your paddle strokes. Using the body's rotation to move the paddle through the water.